I started my musical journey with cassettes in the back seat of my parents' car and unfolding that J card, sometimes 8 to 12 panels long, and reading all the lyrics and seeing all the notes. And just that there was just so many different ways that cassettes happen. Anyway, I grew up on cassettes. And so when I started to get the sense that they were coming back around again in the early 2000s, 2010s, probably, I got excited because I was very nostalgic for them. I actually wasn't overly nostalgic for vinyl. I got into vinyl later in life and didn't grow up with vinyl. Whereas cassettes, I was nostalgic for. So when they came back around, I was a little bit excited about that. And I was an early adopter, I think, into the independent music world of doing cassettes. I tried to do them for my label. Not a great response from the public. I've bought some from other record labels. I continue to buy used cassettes just to feed that nostalgia. I have some cassette players all over my house. I wish I had one in my car. And then I got that new Bluetooth cassette player. Anyway, I love cassettes. We're going to talk about, but for some reason, they still get a lot of flack. And a lot of people every day still write articles saying, can you believe that cassettes are coming back? But most importantly, I just want to give you some warnings and give you some things to consider before you make cassette tapes. Other Record Labels is supported by Lander. As you may know, here at Other Record Labels, we've always been on the lookout for a reputable digital distributor that we can confidently recommend to our community, something I get asked about on a weekly basis. And we're proud to say that we finally found it with Lander Digital Distribution. Not only are they an incredible company with so many features included in your membership, but they're also a Spotify preferred distributor. Lander makes getting your music on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, TikTok, and tons of other platforms incredibly easy. Plus, they offer fair pricing, no hidden fees, and artist-friendly terms, which is exactly what independent artists and labels like us need. And I'm personally quite fond of the mastering services and the free plugins and some of the samples that you get as well. I'm really incredibly grateful to Lander for making these weekly episodes possible. If you're looking for a trusted distributor to help get your music heard, check out Lander using our special link in the episode description, or just head to otherrecordlabels.com/Lander. That's spelled Landr. Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Other Record Labels. I'm your host, Scott Orr, where we talk about the art and culture of running a record label. And we have record labels of all different kinds in our community. And when I've done the Label Mates group, which we're doing a new one this fall, when I do the Label Mates group, it's interesting because we have record labels who are doing exclusively cassette tapes. They're doing horror cassettes. They're doing punk cassettes or hip hop cassettes. And some of them are completely DIY and some of them are getting them manufacturing and going all out on them. And then, of course, we have labels in our community that are strictly digital, that they're just doing singles. They're just promoting a single. They have no interest in physical media. And then most of our labels are somewhere in between. A lot of digital, a little bit of vinyl, a little bit of cassettes. Today, I want to talk to the people out there who are thinking about doing cassettes, and I've got 5 things I want you to keep in mind. First of all, let's talk about how to manufacture cassettes. There are kind of 3 basic ways I think you can manage cassettes. First of all is DIY. So the do-it-yourself model, it can get really, really dirty. You can go to the thrift shop, buy a cassette. You can put tape over the tabs, and then you can tape over the music. And so you're selling someone a Tina Turner cassette tape, but in actuality, it's got this like GarageBand demos or whatever your music is on top of it. And some people will do like put it in a case, or they take the original case and then throw away the jacket. That's disrespectful to Tina, but like maybe you'll cut out on cardboard a new sleeve. That's like the most rawest, dirtiest, quick and dirty DIY option. I love those. Those are cute. But there's people who actually will get J cards. Those are they're like a J because if you kind of hold them on the side, they look like a J because they have the spine and the side tab and then the main cover, and it looks like a J. And so some people will like get those printed professionally or, at Kinko's or whatever, and then they'll score them and fold them properly, measure them nicely, and then buy a case or get used cases and then create some really nice looking professionally done J cards and everything in between. Some people will get the J cards blank, ordered on bulk, and then they'll lay them all out on a table and splatter paint on them, or they'll hand draw on each one so each one is unique. The same thing with tapes. You can buy blank tapes. You can buy them. Of course, you know, you can buy them in like 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, but you can actually request from a manufacturing plant the custom time. And so if your album is 40 minutes long, 20 minutes on each side, you can actually order a tape that's C40. It's just a blank cassette. It can be a white case. You can pick whatever color you want the case to be. No writing anything on it, no recording on it. You take it home and then you dub it at home. You record them at home. I've done that before. Very arduous. But it gives you a chance to handwrite on the tape or do a stamp or something like that. So that's the most DIY. The second, there's these like small batch, small runs. And so there are some places out there, some labels actually who do it as a bit of a revenue generation, who are really good at DIY tapes, who will, I don't have any to recommend at the moment, but because they kind of come and go, but maybe look around the tape community. But somebody who will do like 10 or 20 for you, they'll do that process for you. So maybe you're saving money cheaper than going to a manufacturing plant doing 30, 40, 50, 100, but it still has that DIY feel and you can speak into the design and the layout a little bit more, but there's these like independent companies or just independent individuals who are using it to make a bit of money and will do 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 for you. Then the kind of like the top tier is getting a place like duplication.ca where I've gotten my tapes done. There's a historic place in the US called the National Audio Company, I believe, who've been doing, I think they're in Missouri. They've been doing tapes for a very, very long time and they never stopped. Those are the two big ones I know. I'm sure there are others out there. Our friends at A to Z do them as well. And when you're going at this level, they're getting done really, really well. They're getting done with shrink wrap. You have lots of J-card options. I've done something called O-cards, which there's no case involved. It's just a card, like a cover that is cardstock that forms a complete O. It's like the cassette singles used to be done this way, and a cassette fits in it, and then you don't need a case. You save a bit of money. It's a little bit cooler that way, or just not cooler, but unique. There's also Obi strips and different stickers and inserts that can be done. So there's lots of things that can be done on we'll talk about what you can do with the cassettes, but when you have a professional plant doing them, they're stamping the cassettes generally. They're doing the high resolution, real time, in some cases, audio transfer. So it's really a really great product. And if somebody is playing these on a really good stereo deck, they're not going to hear a difference between this and a vinyl or a CD or digital. I mean, sort of, but like for the most part, they're not going to hear a difference. So that's the 3 levels of manufacturing. You can go DIY, do it yourself. Small run, which is do it yourself but by someone else. What's the acronym for that? And then manufacturing, a great manufacturing plant who does the whole job for you. Costs a little bit more. In some cases, depending, though, if you're going in high quantities like 100, it actually doesn't cost more. It becomes more affordable than doing it yourself, believe it or not. Okay. Number 2 is how do you prepare the audio files? So keep in mind, you have to balance the side times. So I've just talked about a record that's 40 minutes long. Okay. And a cassette that you're wanting to buy, a blank cassette, needs to be a total running time of 40 minutes. That doesn't mean it's 40 minutes on each side. Well, it could, I suppose. You could play the album twice. People have done that before. But generally, you divide the album in half in the same way you do a vinyl record. But unlike a vinyl record, the sides of a cassette need to be balanced. So you need to have 20 minutes on each side. And again, if you have a 40-minute record, then the cassette tape you need is probably a 42-minute cassette tape, like to have like a minute on each side buffer, maybe 30 seconds at the beginning, 30 seconds at the end, or at least at the end, just a little bit of a buffer in case that, you don't want to get too close to the edges. So the reason why you want to balance is because if side 1 is, let's say, 22 minutes, that would make side 2 18 minutes. And so with side 2, 18 minutes, it means that you have like 2 minutes of dead space at the end of the album. And that's like not a great listening experience. It's normal. It's been done before. Later on, I'll talk about like some cool ways that you can deal with that problem. But generally, I try to balance the audio. There's a couple little cool things I've done to balance the audio, and I've seen other people do as well. You're never going to get it perfect. Listen, I've listened to major label releases from the 90s and the 80s, and there's like dead silence at the end of the album for a little while. Nobody really tried to get it right, but it's just something you need to do. So when you're preparing the audio files, if you think of both sides as a 20-minute audio file, I generally will just create a WAV file that is side A, 20 minutes long, one long WAV file, and side B, 20 minutes long or however long, that's side B. So that to me is like how I prefer to do it. I guess you could, if you're doing it to a manufacturing plant, you could send them 5 tracks that are labeled side 1, side A, track 1, side A, track 2, side A, track 3, and so on. And then another batch of files that say side B, track 1, side B, track 2. I just don't like that because I'm a little worried that things are going to get out of whack. That's how I do it with vinyl. And because generally I trust the plant to figure it out. And I'm sure most plants with cassettes are the same way. I just like to make one long WAV file. That's just how I like to do it. But you can do it however you want. Just when it comes to balancing the audio, one of the things that I've seen people do in order to balance the audio is bonus tracks. And so on my last record, I was about 30 seconds, 40 seconds short of the sides balancing, which is really good. And so what I did was the last song on side A was somewhat of an instrumental. Well, it had a long outro, a long instrumental outro. So I went into Pro Tools into the session. Not everybody has the advantage to do this, but I went into that song. And remember, the version of that is on Spotify is the same version that's on CD, the same version that's on vinyl. But the cassette version is a little unique because I took that last song and I just extended that outro. I duplicated things a little bit, just drawn out that outro and added some field recordings. So like this song on the CD that's 5 minutes is now, let's say, 5 minutes and 45 seconds. And it just has like a more of a reverb sustain ending that just goes on and crystallizes a little bit. Most people won't notice, but it's instead of doing dead space. So I had like 40 seconds of dead space at the end of side A I had to make up for because side B was just slightly longer. Does that make sense? In the past, I've had my two sides are so unbalanced that I've thrown in a little demo, like just a little kind of like Green Day hidden demo, on the end of one side. So that's just something you might need to do. Another thing when it comes to the audio files, and I'm not a mastering engineer, but it's something to consider. It might not be the end of the world to push the highs and the mids a little bit on your audio master, just because a lot of cassettes and cassette players tend to be a little bit warmer, which is what we love about them. But I found them to be sometimes a little bit too muffled. And again, we don't know what people are using to play these cassettes. We can't trust that they're as good as their nice Bluetooth speakers that they listen to Spotify on or their car stereo. And so I will generally like tighten up the low end a little bit on a cassette master, maybe boost the mids ever so slightly, boost the highs just a little bit, knowing that tapes are going to roll off the highs no matter what. So that's just something to consider if you're that advanced in your audio creation. Tip number 3 is, how do you design the artwork? So I've talked to you about J cards. We basically have like 3 things to consider. We have the insert, which we call the J card. We have, how do we print on the cassette itself? And I'll tell you the options we have, meaning like the track listing or the indicating side A, side B, or your record label logo. How do we get that on the tape? And then the extra stuff, hype stickers or inserts. So number 1 is the J card. You have the spine, you have the back panel, you have the front cover, and then you can also print on the reverse of that. So you can print on the inside of the J card. And as I mentioned, J cards in the olden days used to unfold to like 16 panels or more, like 24 panels that you could have artwork and lyrics and everything. It was crazy. Honestly, I think it was like, for these major labels, it was like no extra expense really to do this. The customer felt like they were getting so much more. The artist felt like they could put in their thank yous and their lyrics on such a small canvas. Remember, cassette is like, the word means like a cartridge, like a small little, a small case. And so the fact that you could fit in lyrics and thank yous and all and photographs of the artists, I think major labels used to do this. Also, my theory too is that the more and more of paper that you could fold into the case, the heavier the tape would feel. So if you're picking it up at a record store back in the day, you'd be like, oh man, this feels like a cool, it's heavier. It's not, I'm not just spending $15 on a light piece of plastic, even though you were. So the J card, but I don't see that nowadays. I don't see people going 8 panels, 16 panels. I generally just see I think a J card, like a basic J card, it was considered 2-panel, which means the front cover and then the other side of the front cover, which would be like the inside cover. That would be considered a 2-panel. So if you're looking for just a basic J card, I think you're looking for a 2-panel J card. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. There's a lot that you can do with this type of design as a canvas. Remember, when you're thinking about a cassette tape, it's vertical, right? The cover is vertical. It's like it's the difference between like a portrait and a landscape photo. It's very different than the artwork you're going to be using on Spotify and iTunes, on Bandcamp, or on your vinyl record, which is a square. And so this complicates things a little bit because some people don't have the ability to transition their square artwork into a vertical canvas. And so we saw with Atlantic Records, and we saw with so many labels back in the day, they would do just the square cover and then the track listing below it and the artist's name, which is quite nostalgic. I miss those days. But if you are hiring a designer, or if you have the design files accessible, the cool thing you can do is create a vertical version of your album cover, and it adds kind of a unique scarcity or unique selling point to this cassette, that it has a different cover than the vinyl version. There's also the responsibility of getting your track listing or your artist information or your side indicators on the tape itself. Now, the tape itself, you can generally pick most any color or metallic look or clear case that you want. Your manufacturing plant will have tons of different options for that. Sometimes they have glitter on them as well. Very cool options you can do. How do you print on those tapes? Well, there's a couple of different things. If you're doing DIY, you can handwrite with a magic marker. You can also buy labels off of Amazon that you put in your printer, and you print them, and then you peel those labels off. And then, like we used to do with CDs, you guys ever do that before? That was a nightmare trying to get it perfect. And then most CD players didn't like the paper cover. Anyway, you line up the paper and you put it on the tape as a label. And so that's one way to do it. And your plant will do that too. It's very cheap. You can do that black and white, or you can do that color. The best way that I've seen it been done before is pad stamping. And so the manufacturing plant will print your design on a pad, and then they will stamp the whole tape, and it looks really professional. The other thing to consider with artwork is hype stickers or inserts. So do you want to put a download code in there? Do you want to put a little piece of poetry in there? Or do you want a sticker or an Obi strip? So if you're doing, one thing that's really cool is if you're doing like a standard case and it's being shrink wrapped. That's interesting. Shrink wrapped. Wrapped is past tense. Shrunk wrapped. Shrunk is past tense. Do I need to do double past tense? Shrunk wrapped? Or can I just say shrink wrapped? Or can I say shrunk wrap? I'm going to say shrunk wrap. So if you're getting your tapes shrunk wrap, no, that doesn't feel right. Anyway, if you're getting them shrink wrapped, you might want to do a cool little sticker, like a little hot buy, or like $9.99, like kind of an 80s looking sticker. But anyway, you can do hype stickers in the same way we do them on vinyl. Those are just some things to consider with your artwork. Okay, let's answer two more questions before we go. Number one is how to sell these cassettes. Very simply, Bandcamp supports cassettes. A lot of people sell great cassettes on Bandcamp and do really well. They ship super easy. That's why I love about cassettes, is you can pop them in a padded envelope. I've had some pretty good success of them not breaking in the mail, thankfully, knock on wood. And a lot of places in Canada and the US, you can get away with like a stamp or two. So they're very, very affordable to ship. That's what I love. Local record stores is another place that you can sell them. You can bring them in. I'll be honest with you, I'm going to call out my record store friends. So in 2013, I made my first cassette. In fact, I did vinyl for this record I released in 2013. And the vinyl manufacturing plant was trying to promote cassette manufacturing, and they gave away 50 free cassettes with every vinyl purchase. Isn't that crazy? So I did this big, like $2,000, $3,000 vinyl manufacturing. I did maybe 200 or 300 records. And then they gave me 50 cassettes with pad stamping. They did the audio, they shrink wrapped them. They did the J cards, the nice clear cases and everything for free. I totally forgot about that until right now. And that was awesome because I could sell them. Again, in 2013, cassettes were not crazy. Vinyl wasn't even crazy in 2013 yet. And so I was not really selling them, but I did end up selling out of them over the years. And it was all pure profit. So thanks to that plan, I totally forgot about that. But you know what? Things just weren't huge. So I remember going to my local record store. I had CDs, vinyl, and cassettes. And so I showed them the vinyl. They're like, great, thanks. And they put them in the rack. I showed them the CDs. They're like, cool, we'll take one or two of these. Like, they're good impulse buys. And then I showed them the cassettes, and they were like, what do we do with these? Like, we don't have shelf space. We don't sell used cassettes. Like, they were like literally confused. It was the bizarrest thing ever. Like, for this store was like, I don't know what to do. So they put them on the shelf, and they're like local artists, whatever. And I think they sold them, I guess. Anyway, it was kind of cute. And then, anyway, so that's like 12 years ago. And my issue, and the reason I bring this up, and I'm trying to call out some of the record stores here, is I really want record stores to do a better job with like giving cassettes like a day in the sun. And I know they don't sell very good, but hopefully they can get some like prominent display places like on the wall where they're forward facing. I know there's some Japanese stores that are just absolute bonkers at doing this. Like, they do such a great job. But I've noticed a lot of North American stores focusing more on vinyl, rightfully so. We get it. But I think it would help a little bit if some record stores give a shout out in the comments, or send me an email, or drop somewhere wherever you can comment, and let me know some record stores who are doing this well. But yeah, just a shout out. You can bring them by your local record store and sell them on consignment, hopefully. And like I said, selling them, shipping them is super easy. Okay, last thing is, how do you get people to buy these cassettes? Because there still is a bit of a barrier. There's people who don't know, they don't really care, and they don't understand it. And I encounter people on a daily basis who are still shocked that people are still making cassettes. And I'm kind of get sick of justifying them. So our friends at Joyful Noise, we interviewed them many years ago, and they kind of pioneered this, arguably, but historically, they've kind of pioneered this cassette revolution a little bit. And they started doing cassettes really, really well. And they started with these box sets of kind of indie artists, even artists who weren't on the label, like doing these nice little wooden box sets of discography and cassettes, something I honestly think more artists and labels need to do, especially like some of the major labels. Major labels, by the way, the major labels are all over vinyl. They're doing vinyl box sets, they're doing reissues, they're doing color variants of every release from 1950 and beyond. In a lot of cases, versions that nobody's asked for. And they're charging millions and millions of dollars for these records. But they're not doing anything with cassettes. Some of them have dabbled, Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish. They've dabbled a little bit in cassettes, Bon Iver. They're selling them for $30 or $40, which is just bonkers. But nobody seems to be kind of like, digging up like all of Billy Joel's discography and reissuing that on cassette. Like, is it just me? I think that would be really cool. How do you get people to buy cassettes? Box sets are a great way. Limited runs. When I do cassettes, I do about 25 to 50. And I find the more I do, the less likely I am to sell out. The less I do, the more scarcity invoked. And I feel like people buy them. The exclusive song thing, or the exclusivity of like different artwork, that's always gotten people kind of excited. Is like, you buy the cassette version, you're getting something that nobody else gets, which is what I like, because it's a bit of a nod. It's a bit of a nod to the people who like cassettes, because there's so few of them. It's like, hey, we're part of the same community here. I'm going to give you a little treat because you're buying this little $10 product, and not a lot of people are, not a lot of people are into it, but you and I are. And so for that, you're getting some cool little bonuses. So I like the exclusive songs, not only just for the fact that we can use it to balance the sides, as I already mentioned, but it's a kind of cool way to add a bit of scarcity and a bit of exclusivity to these products. I think when you go DIY, as we talked about at the beginning, when you go DIY, there's a lot of cool things that you can do that kind of makes it more intriguing to cassette collectors. Some people will be like, no, that's not for me. I have a label. They sent me a free cassette recently. that is like a double album, and it comes in a bigger case that holds 2 tapes. You put them sideways, and it's huge. It's really cool. And there's something unique about that. And so I think when you do something that wasn't DIY, that was actually really, really well done. But some people do DIY things that are super bizarre. You know, they record things and they make one-off tapes that are like a recording that's like, you only get 1 copy of it. And so I think there's some really interesting things you can do that will make people stop in their tracks and go, oh, that is it, kind of interesting. I think I'm going to buy that because I've never seen anybody do that before. There's another label in our community that was ripping their cassettes. And so when you buy a cassette, it comes with a digital download that is actually the cassette being played into a computer and then broken up into WAV files or MP3 files, which is cool. It's quirky. Some people are like, well, why wouldn't I just listen to the Spotify version? Well, you're listening to the Spotify version, but this time it's got that cassette sound, the hiss and the warble, and that's fun. People love that. That's why we love cassettes. One of the reasons why people love vinyl is one of the reasons that people criticize vinyl, which is that it's impractical. They're really big. They're hard to store. They're expensive. It's not the easiest way to listen to music. And that characteristic is what we love about vinyl, oddly enough. And I think that transfers over to cassettes as well. Yeah, they don't sound great. Yeah, they're not practical. In the way that vinyl is too big to store, cassettes are often too small to store and display. And not everybody has a place to put them, as I mentioned, in record stores. But it's those little quirks and those little imperfections that I think people love about cassette tapes. It's not for everyone. And if you're one of the people in this podcast listening community who don't really care about cassettes, you don't get it, your audience is not into it, I appreciate you listening to the end of this episode and just kind of poking your head in on how this all works. Because it's not for everyone. And I get that. Maybe one day it will be for everyone, in the way that I see vinyl starting to reach out across different genres and different demographics and different age groups. Maybe that will happen too with cassettes. Who knows? I hope that's kind of giving you some guidance and some awareness of things to keep in mind before you go ahead and make cassette tapes. And I think you should. Let me know when you do. I want to see them. Send me an email. Tag me on Instagram with whatever cassettes you've got going on. I'd love to see the different ways that labels in our community make cassettes. Thank you for listening. And thank you to our friends at Lander. If you want $50 off your subscription to Lander, that includes not only incredible digital distribution, but also includes mastering services. It includes some online courses and samples and a beat library and so many different cool things. Then be sure to check them out by going to lander.com/other record labels. That's lander.com/other record labels, and that'll get you $50 off your subscription. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's episode, and thanks for listening.